My dog and I are here in the house, soaking up the good wood heat that we have on a cold and kind of dreary day. Right now the sun's shining a little bit, but it was 44 degrees about 4:30 or so when I woke up, and when I checked just a little bit after 12 noon, why, it was 30 degrees, so it's going downhill all day. A cold, windy day, I prefer to stay in the house. So my dog and I, here we are. But I've kind of been running over, I guess, a little bit of my life while I was sitting here. And I've seen a very huge change in farming practices that has improved our farmland beyond belief. When I was a kid, almost all the hill farms, which was mostly what we had in this territory, had just huge washed out ditches in it. Most of it was caused because of the people who had cattle. The cattle always walked in the same path as they moved around, and when it rained, why, the dirt washed out and they'd kick loose. And over the years, it had become quite a problem, and it was hard to even have a good field that you could farm because of the ditches. And a lot of the farms got so bad, the ditches washed out in all the low spots, and the farmers would plow up and down the hills just to get a little bit of room to raise some crops. Of course, consequently, they had a very huge land washing away, erosion. But I have to give our USDA people in Congress a lot of credit. They've probably done more good for our country than any other thing that's ever happened. When they started subsidizing the farmers to put in waterways and terraces, and then in later years there, they subsidized building ponds and that kind of thing. When I was a kid, and my entire neighborhood, which was several miles each way, I only knew of one pond that was 6 foot deep. And with horses, you couldn't hardly build a pond with any volume to it at all, because you didn't have the equipment to do it in the first place, and it'd just take hours and hours and hours to do it. And then if it rained in the process, where you had water in the bottom of it, and that ended your digging. And so you just couldn't hardly build a good pond. But with the government programs, after the bulldozers and that kind of stuff came in, and tractors and plows, you could plow up the terraces real well. And the government programs would supply people to come out and lay the terraces out on the proper waterfall between them. And then the waterways, get them grassed in where you could turn the terraces into them. Why, that pretty well took care of the erosion off of the hills as you farmed it. Of course, in that area in the mid-30s, we had 6-year or so drought, and we didn't really have that much wind erosion here, but we gained a lot of Oklahoma and Kansas and Texas land that blew up here in those years, because without the rain there wasn't any foliage on the ground, and the wind blows from those states every year, but it just stripped the states of their topsoil, and we gained a lot of that. I've seen days that it was almost dark because of the dirt in the air. But anyway, after people got the terraces put in and some water reservoirs where we didn't have as much runoff in the first place, that helped a lot. And another thing that really helped in this part of the country anyway was when the fescue, Kentucky 31 fescue, came in, and it would sit there and take dry weather, and as soon as it did rain, it would just come right back to life, and it had a good root system, and it really should get a lot of credit for saving our soil. And another thing, that when the Lespedeza came in, well, before that, by July, about all pastures and fields were brown. They just dried up. But that fescue would provide a lot of good quality hay, and it would sit there and hold the ground together, and things could stay somewhat green. But I always had to give our USDA people a lot of credit for helping with stopping all the erosion that was happening. And another thing that helped a lot around here was when I think the government supplied hedge plants to plant hedgerows to slow the wind down, and that had to help a lot. They are about all gone now, but due to the other farming practices that have improved our erosion problems, they aren't as important. Because when I was a kid, everyone plowed their ground with horses, and a team of horses couldn't pull a plow very deep. You get 5-inch deep for you were doing pretty good. But then after tractors came in, the farmer could plow 8, 10, 12 inches deep, and when it rained, well, that would soak up a lot more water and keep it where it fell, and that made a big difference. And then 20, 25 years ago, we kind of quit plowing even then, and using the field cultivators, which just ripped the ground open about 12 inches deep. And when it rained, why, you had all those rips about 12 inches apart and 12 inches deep, and that would hold a pretty good amount of water when it rained, and that made a big difference. And then after you harvested the crop with the tractors, they have a heavy enough disc now they can go in there and disc like ground and actually chop the corn stalks or whatever up and mix it in the topsoil before they rip it with the field cultivators. And of course mulch mixed in the top holds the moisture also. And so overall there's been a tremendous amount of good soil erosion policies, and our USDA should really be complimented on those policies. I know a lot of the senators probably fought it pretty hard because it costs some money, but our soil is many times better in this territory at least than it was when I was young, because a lot of the soil, the fields were almost worthless because the topsoil was all washed off and they couldn't really create any more because they couldn't sufficiently work the soil. But anyway, I'm very happy to see all those programs that the government assisted in, and they need to be recognized because our country is a lot better country than it was when I was young.